The #1 video on my channel is silicone rubber mold making 3 different ways, and it has 224,000 views. Carl sent in these objects, and I looked at them and I thought, these are 3 entirely different objects, and I've got to cast them entirely different ways. Like these 2 objects screw together, and they have to fit together. And all of these objects have holes. So I thought, let's revisit that earlier video. 3 different objects, 3 different strategies for mold making, only this time with a lot of additional complexity. What these 2 parts have in common is they both have holes. In fact, they both have 2 holes. They're very similar. The F cancer ribbon, I think that's a sentiment we can all buy into, has a hole like that, and this one has that. So they have a big hole and they have a small hole. And if there's one area that I get a lot of questions about is how do you deal with holes? It seems to just puzzle everyone, and I have finally figured out that the reason for that is people use rubber that's way too hard. Because the secret, as you will see, to dealing with holes is to be able to cut through them. But how do you cut through them? You don't want to cut the model. And then so knowing how to do that is the whole secret to dealing with holes in a model. So we're going to deal with this little dinky hole, and we're going to deal with the bigger holes. This one has the additional problem. This one has a deep hole. So one of my rules is if the depth of the hole is much deeper than the diameter, which it is, it's probably about 2 times here, the diameter. Let me see. Yeah, it's roughly 2 times the depth than the diameter. That's a problem because that's a piece of rubber that can move around. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to cut the mold right in the middle of the part. And you're all thinking, well, how the heck are you going to do that? I'll show you. In order to make a mold of this piece, we want to get rid of the hollow. So we're going to fill it up with rubber. And that means we want to put a parting line in the middle. And I think the simplest way to do that is just going to be to use a piece of Sculpey. Break out the Sculpey. Get it flat, more or less. This does not have to be perfection because this is going to be a hidden parting line. So let's just decide how big it's going to be. Like that. Perfect. That should fit perfectly. And while we're at it, let's just put a little registration mark in the middle. That way the 2 halves of the rubber inside of there will fit together. Nice little divot. See if there's any ridges on that. Nope, looking pretty good. Okay. So now let's just cut this roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect. I do like thin sheet steel for cutting clay. Makes it nice and easy. All right, that's pretty close. Okay, we should be able to get that to fit. Let's see if we can. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm looking straight down the tube on top of my clay, and then I'm just going to mash it on there. Cut it free. Get that thing cut off of there. That's why I love that knife so much. It just does a great job. We can just trim this. And what we should have is a plug that fits in there really nice. But it's too far down there, so what we're going to do is take the tube, and I don't think it's going to be that hard to push it down. Come on down. Get it going. Don't want it too close to one end. Ideally, we want this plug right in the middle. Or close to it. Just working it down with my fingers, pushing it down. It's pushing down real easy now. And it's very close to where we want it. Look at that. That gives us a really clean, pretty plug to create that interior parting line. It's pretty obvious how they cast this thing. You can see they ground off flats right here. So no doubt the pour spout attached here and a vent attached here or 2 spouts or whatever. But that's not how I'm inclined to do it. In fact, I think that's rather ugly. I think we may have to fix that. And of course, they just have wicked, wicked parting lines all around the thing, which we hope to not duplicate. So I would be inclined instead bring a vent straight down like this and bring the spout out here like that. I think that's how we're going to do it. And then we're just gonna set it up in a cup. Ta-da, simple as heck. Just put it inside of a cup like that. And you're saying to me, but the cup is too small, it's not gonna fit. Now I'll show you my handy dandy cup extension trick. I'm just gonna shape up a pour spout like that. Nice and neat and simple and very quick and easy. I love epoxy clay for making pour spouts. So let's do that. So we're going to go ahead. How big should this be? And we'll just make a pour spout. And we're going to connect it like that. Just like that. So I will make up this pour spout. It'll take me a little while to sculpt it. I'll sculpt it off camera. Then we're just going to, what are we going to use to stick this on? What? That's right, sticky wax. All right, let's go do that. Got the sprue sculpted up. And it's going to fit on there real nice, like this. And we'll get that attached in a minute. But you see what I did off camera? I did one of my legendary famous tests. Don't know what this material is, don't know what it's painted with. So I want to make sure my rubber is going to cure. So I put a dollop on there last night. And yeah, cured up fine. But the real question is it going to cure up on this 3D printed resin part? 3D printed resins are notorious for inhibiting cure, but look at that, no worries at all. So that means that we can do the first step on this. We're going to pour it with rubber. I would like to not catch a bubble down in that silly well, so let that rubber run down in there. Always like to see that rubber rise up from the bottom. Fill its way all around. Let's fill it. Let's top it. That is all we need to do. Beautiful. This part needs a case, and what we're going to do is we're going to use this cardboard to create the case, but it's not quite big enough. So the trick to this is we're going to cut this off center. So one side is going to be 1 9/16 and the other side is going to be 1 5/16. You can see I only need 3 inches of height at the most. So by making 6 inches, I'm going to have 2 big pieces and 2 small pieces. And I can use the 2 big pieces, join one half over here and one half over there. And voila, I've got a part that's perfectly the right size to fit it, the case. Well, you'll see it when we do it. So we're going to cut this out and cut it properly. I marked the big sides and the small sides. That's ready to go. Time to mount this ribbon in the cup, and all I did was I cut the top off to extend the cup. That's a neat little trick, which you should remember. Very handy way to extend the cup. So let's get to this thing. Get out the sticky wax. Get some sticky wax going on this. You don't need too much, just need enough. Okay. Get him on there. We want it just in the right position, about like that. So that holds that on there, but I don't like the way that blends in. Am I happy with it this way? A little bit, could be maybe a little bit straighter up. Sticky wax lets you adjust. Let's see what it looks like in the cup. It's got to fit. Ooh, it does fit. Perfect. Okay. Now we can take the other wax and just sculpt around it. Let that sculpting wax make a nice clean connection between the sprue and the body of the part. You can see from what I'm doing how much I rely on my waxer and wax in general to do this work. It's just such a handy medium. Okay, just ran right in there. That was what I was trying to achieve. Just a nice clean run of wax in there. Same thing over here. Just flow some wax on there. Nice. Okay. That is well and truly attached. Now, the other thing that we're going to need is a vent. And we're going to need that vent right on this side, right here. So we want that attached well as well. I'd rather make a good strong connection there and have to sand it off than starve that connection and have to fill a bubble there later. I'd a lot rather sand off extra material than catch bubbles, fill the bubbles, and sand off extra material. It's just extra steps. Sticky wax, sticky wax, sticky wax. I should sell this stuff. I should be a sticky wax manufacturer. Okay. And into the cup it goes. I didn't like what I was seeing, so I yanked it out of the cup, and I'll tell you why. When I put the piece down in the cup, I wasn't able to attach the vent to the bottom of the cup. I just couldn't reach down in there deep enough. So I thought, well, that's no good. I want to make sure that this vent comes all the way up to the bottom of the cup. So all I did was I took a piece of cardboard, this is a very high-tech solution, cut out a little chunk of cardboard, waxed it mightily, front and back, top and bottom, and then welded the whole thing together. And now I know that my sprue and my vent and the part are going to be contiguous, and they're all going to make a nice tight unit. So now we'll start over with the Happy Dippy Dappy Sticky Wax. And also, because they're on their own little individual base, really doesn't matter if some rubber gaps underneath this cardboard bottom. You know, you might get some leakage. It's not going to make a bit of difference. We know that we're going to have a nice, clean, castable unit coming out of the cup. So let's put that in there like this. Make sure it's centered up. Make sure everyone's happy. Okay, well, that looks good. And then to extend the cup, back to the sticky wax as always. Just lay a bunch of dots of sticky wax on there. Let's put that on there, stick her on. Now that is going to leak almighty till we fix it. And how we're going to fix it, of course, is with wax. Just run a bead of wax all the way around the joint. And if you melt it in correctly, it just flows really nicely into the seam and makes a watertight joint. Okay, that is sealed 100% all around. That piece is ready to pour just like that. Ready to wax the case. This is the case for this boy. Let's get it waxed up. A lot of wax in this brush. Let's put this on this paper. It'll suck it all up. This paper really sucks up the wax. Nice. All right, so that is the case for this piece. Ready to go. The case for this piece I built, and I didn't show you my building. It was just a simple box. Very straightforward box. I color-coded it so it would all go back together like I like it. Let's go ahead and wax it up. Very straightforward and simple box. I'm going to make sure that I get all of the edges of these pieces so that these little pieces don't stick together. I'm going to go around, finish waxing everything, you get it, and I'll come back to you when we're ready to put these boxes together. Next step here is to put the little registration dots on this piece. Pour some out. And I'm just going to use some sticky wax, as always. Just take a little dollop of sticky wax, put it on there. See if that'll work. It might be better to sticky wax the piece. Let's try that. Okay. I like to place the dots asymmetrically around the part, and that way the two halves of the molds only go together one way, making sure that the rubber can't leak underneath them. Just running a little bead of wax around them. That way I know they're going to be clean. A little bit of craft here saves time later. All right. Beautiful. That's all that's required. It's literally all that's required for those. And now we're going to be able to put this part in there like that. We are ready to pour some rubber, and in order to do that, I have to pull out that little plug. If you'll recall, I put in a plug in there. Let's see if we can just, let's see if it will just pull itself out. Hopefully it will, once it starts, it'll come out, and I won't have to kill myself to get it out of there. Come on, baby. Man, I would have loved for that to lift out of there. It's not really lifting out of there. I'm having to scrape it out. Oh, there you go, okay. I had to get underneath it to lift it. Come on out of there. Come on, guy. Give me a break. There we go. Oh, yes, but then, of course, it left clay all over the place in there. You can see the rubber surface down in there. Can you see that? Can I get you to see that? I don't know, it's pretty dark in there. Or maybe you can see it over here. See that rubber surface down in there? There you go. We don't want the next layer of rubber that we're going to pour against it to stick. So I brushed on a nice slick of release agent. Let's pour this bad boy. Just going to pour it till it's full. Do want to make sure that button fills up down in there and I don't catch a bubble in it. Didn't. Perfect. Okay, let's pour it. That's really full enough, but we can always top a little bit more. Let's pour this guy. Here we go. Pour from the bottom up. Want to make sure that runs through that hole in there. We want to angle up, come up through that hole, that tiny little hole in the top, the string hole. And we want to come up from this side. So let's pour it. That should fill that just fine. All right. Very good. And now, looking at the hole is filled. The hole is filled. So I can go ahead and scrape this cup. While we're in the middle of pouring things, and before I run out of rubber, I want to attach this part to the base. But I don't want to wax it on there. I want to make a really clean joint between the part and the waxed wood. So one way to do that is simply going to be to clamp it on there with some clamps like this. I think 4 clamps will do it, probably more than adequately. Let's see. Okay. Got 4 clamps going, and what we're going to do is we're going to pick this stuff up and we're just going to paint it around the edge. Push it in ever so slightly and work it around. And all we're doing is sealing up that edge so that when we pour the mass of the rubber, it doesn't push rubber out, so we get a smaller gasket. We get a better joint where the two go together. All right, that's the inner side. And we go around and do the same exact thing on the outside. Just put a gasket of rubber on. This may seem fussy, but this little bit of work now is going to save us cleanup work later on each casting, I hope. Should. Because it should mean that there's not a lot of rubber to trim off, if any. It'd be perfect if there was none. I'll settle for not a lot. Okay, we're almost there. Just working my way around the part. All right, that is sealed up. Nice. Good. That's done. Now, I did not have enough rubber to finish this, but I'm wondering if I can top it with some chunkies. Perfect use for chunkage. But we have to be super careful because we don't want to knock the thing off. That would suck. I'd rather top it than knock it off. That went in there real well. Okay, that went in there. Nice, very nice. It's going right in. Helping to fill it right up. You can tell by the way I'm pushing these things in that I'm being careful not to trap bubbles. That is a major consideration. Don't want to trap bubbles. And you don't want to knock the thing off its base. Okay, I'm just going to continue to do this and fill it up. You get it. And we'll come back when we're ready to cut this mold open. It is time to put this little nozzle into its mold case. And the first step is going to be to apply the sprue, the funnel. And to that end, I just sculpted up this little piece. And that'll be most beautiful. So like that. So then it's time to get him applied, and we're just going to put him on right here. And it goes without saying that we're going to use sticky wax. So let's get on with that. Put a nice wad of sticky wax on there. And get it right where we want it, which is right here. And about there. Okay. We want to make sure that it's well welded onto the part. That should do it. Okay, we now need to weld on our vents. One's going to come off right off of here. Weld on like that. And it's going to be attached like that. We want all the vents to be in a line with the other one. Here. Stick that on. See how that's in alignment? So there's that one. And we need another one. Because these vents are so long, I'm gonna hook them all to the same place. That'll make them stronger, make a stronger connection. Let's connect the vents to the base. So we know that that vent is going to make contact with this base. All right, that looks good. I think that's going to fill. All right, I got this piece sprued and vented and mounted in the case. I added these wax wings here, and the reason for that was I didn't compensate like an idiot for the height of the sprue and the vents. And now, as you can see, there's plenty of meat. It's going to fit really well in there. This piece is ready to go into the case. It is ready to build. And we'll get it all built up and pour some rubber. I put this box together and got it waxed up, mixed up a batch of rubber, and we want to pour this in such a way as to make sure that the rubber flows in, as usual, all around. We're going to pour this inner ring first, and we want that rubber to flow up the sides. Or I don't want it to catch a bubble here up at the top. I just want it to sneak up to that top edge. Fill it up. Nice. Okay. Threads are places where you can really catch it. If you're not super careful, you can catch air in threads. So you want to make sure you rise up all around. I think that did it just right. Now we can go to the box. The rest of the box is easy to fill. Not too difficult. The rubber is always like pushing a wave out in front of it. And if it's pushing the wave properly, it's going to push the air out in front of it as well. So much about not catching bubbles in mold making is just technique. You want to make sure that the rubber flows up and around the part so that it's pushing a wave of air out in front of it. All right, now we got to make sure down in there that those two things are going to meet, kiss in the middle. I think that did that just fine. And notice I'm not draping the part. I'm letting the rubber find its way around and fill the box. Okay, now we can just dump. Okay, beautiful. That looks pretty good. Okay, we have two things to accomplish right now. One is we're going to build this case. I've got this all mounted. I topped this off so there was no well, no chance to catch air. So it's going to be just fine. And now we're going to glue this case together. And of course we're going to use the ever popular, ever lovely sticky wax to do that job. Let's get this thing well and truly goobered with sticky wax. fit that together like that. So that will stay together real well, just with the sticky wax on it. Now, all we have to do is run around and wax up the base. Easy and quick. Okay, so you get it. I'm gonna finish just gluing this thing up, tacking it all together and sealing it up. And we're gonna go on to this project, because this is a little bit tricky. We have to pour the second half of this mold. Remember, this is the nut that screws onto that part over here. And we got to make this into a 2-part mold. So let's see if we can pull it off and get this thing disassembled. Okay. Now what we would like to do is to ever so gently disassemble the box. There you go, just exactly like that. Come on. Come on. Nice. Coming out, coming apart perfect. Okay, now, here's gonna be the trick. We need, the part is embedded in this rubber and I wanna keep it there. And one of my options would have been to put a clear plastic shim in there, and I could have done that, but I didn't, because what I'm gonna try to do here is just go in here and run this knife. I hope I can do this, and just pop it off. Oh, look at that. Worked like a champ. Worked perfectly. Now, there's a slick of rubber you can see. We're going to need to trim all that off, get rid of all of that, rebuild the box around this piece of rubber, and we're going to have to build the sprue and vent system on there. We will do that next. All right, let's take a look at what I did. I made this little pour spout, which you can see, and attached it to the part. I also cleaned up all the flash off the part. So now what we're ready to do is we are ready to install the box on the outside. Let's get this box reassembled. And when I sprayed with release agent, I sprayed the entire box because I know there's going to be some leakage. And I'm prepared for it. Just use these little clamps to hold the box together. So my current theme is clamping boxes. And as you can see, it works really well. Okay, we want to make sure that that's on there tight. We want to hug the rubber as best we can. Get the clamps tight. Hug the rubber. Okay, pretty good. All right, that's going to work just fine, I think. There is the potential for some small leakage here and there, but I think it's going to work out just fine. So what we'll do now, get it well clamped, no excuses. Okay, that's pretty tight. And that's on there, and it's on a base so we can move it. Okay, so we have both of these molds ready to pour. Let's go get some rubber mixed and get these molds poured. Let's pour this kid. Not much to this. This is about as flat and easy a pour as you can do. Let it run out to the edges. Flow on out. Now it'll be really interesting to me to see if it's going to leak badly out of the bottom. If it does, we may have to put a clamp on there. We'll know soon enough, and we'll deal with it if it does. Not a worry in the world. But you can see this is just a dump pour. This couldn't be easier. This one could not be easier. As soon as we're done covering that spout, we're done. Okay. Quick and easy. Let's move this out of the way entirely so we can focus our energy on this one. This one's a little bit more complex of a pour, but not too much. We want to pour from the low side here and fill it from the low side so that it rises from the bottom up. So we're going to run the rubber down like that. Once it has filled the bottom of the mold, then we can just set it down. Then we don't have any issues. but I want it to rise up underneath the bottom of that part, which it's doing very nicely. Both pouring rubber and pouring resin is a lot about what is the orientation, what is the position of the part in space. It really matters how it's filling. I still want to make sure I don't catch bubbles in any of those threads. Can't be having that. So I'm going to fill it almost to the top here. See how I'm filling that up to the top? And then it will rise nicely up the bottom, up from the bottom. That was a pretty hefty batch I mixed up. It looks like it's going to be just the right amount. Go ahead and scrape the cup. And we still have some material in the pot, so let's scrape a little better. Might as well use it all up. Last bit. All right, those molds are done. Let's see. Do we have any leakage? We do not. Miracle. All right, let's put this one on here with this, and they can live together, and they are beautiful. Well, we got the molds poured. Next week, we'll cut them and cast them. If you like this video, hit that like button. It's the best thing you can do to help the channel. Thanks for watching. I will see you next week.